I'm very pleased to be here today for the launch of the translated versions of the National Policy Guidelines on Ending HIV Stigma and Discrimination, which make provision for people with disability, specifically those living with hearing and sight impairment. I was glad to see how you've turned up in numbers. It is truly an honor to see how engaged you are in these national processes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just think for a moment. We do not talk about intersectionalities, but imagine, in fact, let's not imagine. Just last week, I heard of an 11-year-old who had just had a baby, an 11-year-old. But let's imagine for a minute that 11-year-old was living with a disability, maybe was visually or hearing impaired. Can we imagine what kind of challenges she would have had she gone to our health facilities? So the work done here is so important, and I do agree with what Betty Kwabala said, that this needs to go beyond stigma and discrimination. It needs to go to other guidelines, to other policy documents. It needs to be the life that we live, so that people are not left behind. As we know, the UN is now talking a lot about not leaving anyone behind. And we are encouraging governments that programs must be inclusive and must be equal in their reach. I would like to congratulate the Uganda AIDS Commission for this timely translation of the policy guidelines for persons living with disabilities. It comes at a time when there is emphasis globally on strengthening interventions to ensure that we reach everyone. Particularly, as we know sadly, there is too little progress being made on SDGs. And so we must work harder to ensure that we can reach our targets. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2021 UN Political Declaration on HIV noted with concern the inequalities across multiple forms and dimensions, including disability. And this often overlap to compound with each other. They have contributed to the failure to reach the 2020 global HIV targets in many countries. Some people with disabilities, older people, migrants, minority groups, and internally displaced people are often disproportionately affected by HIV. The political declaration further noted that improving effectiveness and reducing inequality also requires improved data disaggregation by age, gender, and disability status. I am here today to pledge UNAIDS support that we will work with government, with the Uganda AIDS Commission and partners to advocate for the implementation and monitoring of these translated versions of the National Policy Guidelines on Ending HIV Stigma and Discrimination. I call upon you all today, particularly government and partners, to do 5 things, just 5 things, so that we can reach our targets. Number 1, we need to scale up concerted efforts to address human rights issues in the context of HIV. We need to promote gender equality and women's empowerment and eliminate stigma and discrimination against key populations and people living with HIV, especially those living with disabilities. We need to prioritize those who are left behind due to their sexual status, their gender, age, sexual orientation, or gender identity or occupation. This can be done through systematically working together to identify and remove barriers that make it difficult for them to access HIV prevention and treatment services, including those at policy and program level. And let me just reiterate here that there is no way we will reach our targets if we leave even one person at unreached with HIV prevention and treatment services. We have to ensure that we really go out to reach those who have been unreached. We need to expand prevention choices for adolescent girls and young women and equip them to effectively take control of their lives. We can do this by addressing the high levels of gender-based violence, early pregnancy, and schoolgirl attrition through integrated programs that seek to protect them. And we have again to remember that there are girls who are living with disabilities and that we need to do extra efforts to reach them. Fourthly, ladies and gentlemen, we need to ensure that women and girls who face intersecting forms of discrimination and violence, especially those living with disabilities, receive the tailored services and support that they need. And that they are meaningfully engaged in HIV-related decision making. I believe we had today a call to the Uganda AIDS Commission for a self-coordinating entity for people with disabilities. And I believe we were given a deadline of 1st December to go back with news. And so I think there is a very solid challenge on your table, Uganda AIDS Commission, to see how do we be more inclusive and not just end as translating guidelines. Let's truly be inclusive and ensure we are walking the talk. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we need to improve effectiveness and reduce inequalities for improved data disaggregation by age, gender, disability status, socioeconomic status, geographical location, and much more to ensure that programs are well informed and that they can be truly reach all. Without data, we are swimming in the dark. So we need to ensure that where we do not have data, we work with the government entities responsible, the Ministry of Health, BOS, the AIDS Commission and others to advocate strongly to say that we do need data because what is not measured is not done. The scale-up and implementation of these guidelines for people living with disability with the focus on the deaf and blind is one of the critical milestones that we anticipate to contribute to help in breaking these barriers. Special appreciation I extend to the Global Fund, who are not here today, that we know provided funds through Ministry of Health and the Uganda AIDS Commissions to have these guidelines translated for this important community. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the challenge is now in our court to see how we each ensure that these guidelines are implemented. And UNAIDS will play its part to ensure that we work closely with the Uganda AIDS Commission and civil society partners to have these guidelines implemented. Thank you very much.